Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
12, 13, 14, 15. Dan, I am your father.
Commissioner Baugh. You ready? Good evening. The time is now 6:02, and I'm calling the regular meeting to order. If staff would please take roll call.
Chair Kendall,
Here.
Vice Chair Updike,
Here.
Commissioner Baugh,
Here.
Commissioner Bigelow,
Here.
Commissioner Clausen. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters not on the agenda. The Commission's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Are there any communications from citizens at this time?
Mr. Chairman, there are no communications from citizens at this time.
Thank you. We now move to administrative items. Consider approval for the minutes of the regular meeting held on December 20th, 2023. Are there any edits the Commission wishes to make? No. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from December 20th, 2023?
I move to approve the minutes from December 20th, 2023.
We have a
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. If the commissioners would please vote. The minutes have been approved. Items will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on the public hearing items may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support or in opposition to an item. In order to comment on a public hearing item, you must fill out a public comment form indicating the item number on which you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there will be no further public comment unless requested by a member of the Commission. After a public hearing, the Commission will act on all items not requiring additional staff, public, or Commission comment with a single vote. I'll now open the public hearing for Z23-08 Heritage North. Staff, can you please confirm that we have one member of the Commission that would wish to recuse themselves from this item?
Mr. Chairman, yes, Commissioner Baugh will be recusing himself from Z2308 Heritage North.
Thank you, Amanda. Ashley, if you would please come forward for the Heritage North presentation.
Hi, Chairman and Commission. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk to you about Heritage North and the amendment to that approved plan. As you know from the study session that we held last month, the site is located at the southwest corner of Juniper Avenue and Gilbert Road at the entrance to the Heritage District. This project was originally approved back in January of 2022 for the PAD and rezoning of the site. It's on a total of 11.97 acres. Following that approval in 2022, there was a design review and a couple of use permits approved for the hotel within HVC, ground floor residential, and then the reduced parking. So tonight you are evaluating a request to amend Ordinance 2814 that approved this project, taking a look at the phasing plan as well as modifying a number of conditions. We're modifying one condition and adding 3 conditions. Just as a refresher of what this project is, it includes 9 total buildings, the Commons open space, water tower way development, improvements along Western Power Line Trail. The original approval was intended to be built in a single phase. As time has gone on and market conditions have changed, the applicant is now seeking to phase the project, which is one of the reasons that it is back before the Redevelopment Commission. What the applicant is proposing is that part of the Phase 1 development would include the multifamily along with the north garage, buildings 3, 5, 6, and 9, which are at the center of the site. Those are retail buildings along with some office. Phase 1 will also include some public amenities, including the Commons open space, Water Tower Way, previously known as the Paseo, as well as off-site improvements and temporary surface parking at the southwest portion of the site. Important to note that the hotel, as shown on this Phase 2 drawing, may or may not develop as part of Phase 1, depending on market conditions and the ability to get a hotel to take that site. So part of Phase 2 would include the remainder of the development, so Building 4, which is adjacent to the south parking garage, Building 7, which is the large office building, as well as the south parking garage. The applicant, as part of this request, is also seeking a modification of Condition O of the original approval. There is language within that condition that said that they shall not be permitted to charge, impose, or collect any fee, toll, or cost for the use of any parking spaces on the property. As we talked about in the study session, the applicant would like the ability to allow residents of the multifamily to be able to reserve parking spaces, as well as potentially allow office tenants or other users of the site to charge for parking for some reserved spaces. So in your packet, you've got this full condition that would allow the applicant to reserve parking. In Phase 1, they would allow no more than 413 spaces to be reserved for guests of the hotel or multifamily. Surface parking shall remain public parking, including 84 spaces on level 1 of the residential garage. Just to explain that, where we came to those numbers, 370 spaces are required for residents of the garage, and so we felt that it made sense to allow them to reserve spaces for the residential component. Should the hotel come in as part of the first phase, that would allow them to reserve some additional spaces for the hotel within that north garage. And then 84 spaces on level 1 is what was shown on the floor plan as how many spaces are on the first level of that garage. In conversation with the applicant after we presented this condition, they did share with me an updated floor plan from the multifamily user that had some different space counts on that level 1 garage. And so the applicant has asked that we take a look at some of these numbers and perhaps reevaluate so that we can make sure that there's a logical point for them to be able to kind of break where they can put a gate for reserved spaces versus where they can't. So they are working on providing some more information on the final layout of that residential garage. And then we also added into this condition some restrictions on how many spaces could be reserved at full build-out. Staff is proposing that the project shall have no more than 790 spaces reserved for office employees, hotel guests, or multifamily residents, and there shall be a minimum of 500 public parking spaces. Again, the applicant is working to provide some additional information on what they think those numbers should be, but at this time, this is the condition in front of the Redevelopment Commission for recommendation tonight until additional information is provided from the applicant. As I mentioned in the study session, we were also concerned about making sure that those reserved spaces are open to the public during off-peak hours for the office, and so we added language in this condition that any reserved spaces in the south garage shall only be reserved between the hours of 7 a.m. and 5 p.m. And signed as such to allow public parking outside of those hours. In addition, staff evaluated whether there was a need to add additional conditions based on the phasing of the development. So we've added 3 additional conditions, one that is part of the design review application, which will come back before the Redevelopment Commission. The applicant shall submit an exhibit identifying how parking will be accommodated during Phase 2 construction. We've added a condition that temporary construction fencing installed around the future phase shall be enhanced fencing and approved as part of the design review application. And then the last one, should the hotel be constructed as part of Phase 1, the applicant shall utilize valet parking during peak hours until Phase 2 construction is complete to accommodate required hotel parking. With a valet parking model, you're able to get quite a few more parking spaces in there because they can stack them a little bit differently, and so that'll help address some of the parking needs on site if the hotel does come in as part of that initial phase. Staff is recommending that the Redevelopment Commission recommend approval of Z2308. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have around the application and staff's recommendation, and the applicant has a presentation as well.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff?
Thank you for presenting again, and you did a very good job addressing a lot of our concerns and making sure they were pinpointed in here, so I appreciate that. I think I think overall, for the developer, I don't think they're wanting to break this up into two phases. I just think financially, with construction costs and interest rate, it's what makes the most sense. So what they're proposing, I do think is fair, and I agree with it. If we, whatever we could do to maybe get that hotel to go in at the same time, I think would be important. And if that is allowing them the extra temporary parking on the first floor or whatever that needs to be, then I'm okay with that, especially if at the end of the day, we could end up with 500 extra public parking spaces. Did I understand that correctly? That it would be something on the lines of that?
Yeah, so with the full build out, there would be 500 public parking spaces within the site is the staff recommendation. As I mentioned, the applicant is evaluating the numbers that staff has recommended as part of this condition, and as it moves forward through the hearing process, there may be some adjustments or requests from the applicant to make changes to that. But yes, that is the plan for 500 public spaces, and I will add that it would be staff's preference for the hotel to come in as part of phase one as well, so we share that.
And has the applicant, have they talked about when they would potentially start phase two, or how long after phase one is completed, or is there any sense of time reference in between the two projects, the two phases?
There is. I might let the applicant better talk about timing, but I will note that the development agreement has them completed. The latest that they could complete construction of phase one is in March of 26. Phase two, per the development agreement, is slated to start at the end of 25. So they probably have a little bit more specifics because there's, some buffer built into those construction windows, but ideally construction of phase two would start very, very shortly after completion of phase one.
Perfect. And I do think just from a building aspect, having some area for them to stage and have fenced off and have materials and stuff, it just would make a lot more sense and make it a lot less congested. Probably speed up the process as well.
Yeah, Chairman and Commissioner, we have had some conversations letting the applicant know that we would be, we would like to know what their plans are for construction laydown as well. And so I don't know that they have that information for you tonight, but certainly as the design review comes forward, we can talk about that a little bit more. And maybe they do know tonight and they can share that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Baugh. Vice Chair Updike?
Thank you, Ashley. So I think my only question, and it's kind of spearheading off of what Commissioner Bigelow was referencing, but that time frame between phase one, phase two, I like that staff's recommended upgraded temporary fencing. What is that timeline for how long that temporary fencing could be there in the event that phase two is extremely pushed out and that temporary fencing starts to deteriorate? Is there any type of suggestions on how to make sure that that temporary fencing is maintained in the event that it just doesn't go to plan?
Yeah, so one of the things that we would work with the applicant on through the design review application is what that fencing would be. I didn't want to nail it down in this condition, in this application, because I thought it was more appropriate in the design review, but we will certainly work with them to make sure that one, it's a durable material, and as we're having, the public walk through that as they're utilizing Water Tower Way, that it's something that would be visually appealing. And I know that Amanda does a great job, and Sydney, working with our development partners in the Heritage District and making sure that they maintain, fencing in their properties. And so we if there was something that came up with that fence, we would certainly reach out and make sure that it gets addressed. As far as the timing, I do not remember what the construction timeline was, but the applicant might be able to address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Updike. I as well had a question in regards to the time frame, but I think both commissioners have addressed it, and you've addressed it, and we'll hear more from the applicant. When it comes to parking, that's obviously the largest area of concern, even now, in the Heritage District. How will reserved spaces in off-peak time be enforced?
So it would be up to the applicant to enforce those. I think if we start to see a problem, we would probably reach out to the Property Owners Association or the property owner. But they need to make sure that the people visiting their site have enough parking as well. So the applicant may have some additional information on how that's monitored and enforced typically. And so I would ask them to address that as part of their presentation.
But as far as where we're at right now with the amount of buildings, occupancy, it's meeting the requirements for the amount of spaces.
That is correct. They have not proposed as part of this application any additional reductions in parking spaces based on their uses. So they will still be required to provide the number of spaces previously approved.
Okay. And so essentially what we're doing with the self-contained parking supply is really just saying they own those spots and then therefore they can charge the tenants of the multifamily and of the office space, they can charge essentially parking rent.
They can, yes, and we tried to, through the condition, to limit the number of spaces that they could do that because we want to make sure that there is still public parking available within this site, and so that it doesn't start to spill into the town's garages that don't have any fees.
Right. I think that's a big concern. Any additional questions from commissioners?
No, I think it's fair. Right now, a bunch of cars are parking out there in this open sun, so if they're willing to build a structure and they want everything above ground for themselves and they'll give us the ground floor with shaded parking, you know, I think it's a pretty fair ask as long as they're meeting the requirements.
Vice Chair Updike, anything else to add?
Not to add, but maybe this is a funny question. There's a lot of amendments, if you will, listed. How do we even move to vote on this when it comes time?
Chairman and Commission, you can just move to recommend approval with staff's conditions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Updike. Would the applicant like to come and speak at this time?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Alex Hayes, 2525 East Arizona Biltmore Circle. Is there a clicker or is this? Happy to be here tonight to provide an update on the Heritage North project. I think this is a project that everybody's familiar with and excited about, and I think Ashley did a great job of kind of laying the foundation for why we're here tonight. I'll give a brief overview of the project and what our requests are and be available for any questions you have. This project is brought forward by Creation. Creation is one of the preeminent developers based here in Phoenix, and along with their construction arm, LG, they're responsible for some of the best projects in the Valley and really nationally. And you need look no farther than the Heritage District to see the level of quality that they're known for and certainly capable of delivering. The site, as you well know, is southwest corner of Juniper Avenue and Gilbert Road. It's approximately 12 acres, zoned HVC with a P80 overlay, and that P80 overlay was approved in 2022. As Ashley mentioned, there were a couple other use permits and other entitlements associated with that approval. And I think it's important to note that we're here tonight to make a couple minor modifications, but fundamentally this project is the exact same that was heard by this body and approved by Town Council. And the vision for that project is to deliver the marquee mixed-use development in the Heritage District and really the town of Gilbert. It includes 9 total buildings. It's multifamily, retail, restaurants, office component, along with the parking garages, open space, and the paseo that traverses the entire site and create some pedestrian connectivity with the broader Heritage District. And again, this comes with that top tier in design and construction that LG and Creation are known for. So the two requests that we have for the minor modifications to the PAD, the first is parking. The initial approval included a condition of approval that required the project to contain or to provide a self-contained parking supply, but it did also include that prohibition on the ability to charge a fee for any space on the site. And while the developer fully intends to provide sufficient parking free of charge for the public, for those customers and visitors to the site, for the retail component, there's a desire to be able to provide, and really an expectation from owners and operators of these types of uses, to be able to provide reserved spaces and to be able to charge a fee for those reserved spaces. And that, when I say that, I'm referring to the multifamily component for the multifamily operator to be able to charge a fee for the reserved spaces for their tenants, for the office tenants to be able to charge for reserved parking for their employees, and then for the hotel to be able to have valet parking and overnight parking for their guests. So I think it's important to note that sufficient public parking will be available. We wouldn't want to create any impediment or disincentive for any customers or visitors to the site. That's essential for this project to be a success. So adequate parking will be provided, and as Ashley mentioned, we're kind of working through the particulars of what makes sense to be included in that condition, as far as specific numbers for reserved parking and publicly available parking. And then the second request is related to phasing. I think everybody wants to see this project move forward as quickly as possible. That's from the Creation team to the town to the residents in the surrounding area. We had a neighborhood meeting, and we had one attendee, and their sole goal for the meeting was to ensure that this project was moving forward. So we know everybody is eager for this to come out of the ground. But with that said, due to the challenges in the office market and the ability to finance and capitalize office development, it became apparent that for this project to move forward as quickly as possible, it's going to have to move forward in phases. So phase one would include the retail, the multifamily, the off-site improvements, and the public open spaces in the Paseo. And then phase two would include the office and the associated commercial garage. And then the hotel could be built in either phase. I think it's the applicant Creation team's goal for that to move forward as quickly as possible. So I think everybody's working toward that happening in phase one, but having the flexibility to bring that forward as market conditions warrant is very helpful to get this project to move forward as quickly as possible. And so with that, the other conditions that Ashley discussed, I think we're all very comfortable with those. I think those are very reasonable and make sense. As she mentioned, we're continuing to work through the particulars of the revised parking condition and kind of what the numbers are that are included in that. But we're all working toward the same goal of providing adequate parking for all the uses. With that, happy to answer any questions you have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Just an idea. Obviously, with the hotel and the apartments, they're going to need, parking 24/7 that's designated per unit. On phase two, once the offices go in, is there some sort of compromise where we could potentially all win, where the office parking is reserved during normal business hours, and then once it hits a certain time, it's the whole parking garage is open to public and on weekends? Because I really feel like most of the time during the day, there's no way the public would fill all the parking spots needed. It's mainly just farmers market and in the evenings that really matter, and most of those offices probably aren't going to be in full swing working. Just an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, Commissioner, and that's actually included in the condition that Ashley mentioned. The revised condition, it does include a time frame at 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. is when the office parking can be reserved, and then after that, it would be open for public use.
Any additional questions? Vice Chair Updike?
Would you be able to speak to an estimated timeframe between phase 1 and phase 2?
Yeah, so the timeline for construction was just revised and approved by town council with the development agreement
Okay.
just a couple months ago, and at this point, we're still thinking that's probably the most realistic timeline.
Okay.
Anything else?
No?
I have a few questions. In regards to phase 2 and the sites, fencing them up, what is, if any, a guarantee that something will actually be built there?
Well, that's, I mean, is the guarantee that there will be a phase 2?
Yes.
That's certainly the intent of the developers to bring that phase 2 forward, on the timeline that has been agreed to. But ultimately it depends on market conditions and being able to deliver a product that's going to be successful.
Okay. Originally, if I recall, there was signage going on top of the hotel that would mimic a lot of the characteristics of the Heritage District, a welcoming sign. Is there, if the hotel is not part of phase 2, will there be any type of signage to replace it, either on a temporary basis or more of a permanent structure?
Yeah, if the hotel does move forward in phase 2, there will still be signage located at that same corner on the northeast corner.
But not initially?
It would be on that site, on the corner, but not on an actual building. So it would be a kind of a monument sign on the corner on an interim basis.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions? Staff, are there any members of the public in attendance who wish to speak on item Z23-08?
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to just make one note, and then we can move into public comment. You had asked about phase 2 and their intent to build it, and I just want to remind the commission that we do have an active development agreement that at this point they are required to build that portion. Okay. And we do have a request to speak from Chris Cook. So Chris, if you could come up to the podium, the mic's already on. Oh, you're, okay, okay. No, we are good to move on then from public comment.
Perfect. Thank you, Amanda. I appreciate the clarification as well. Hearing no public comment, the applicant does not have to address anything. Any additional questions for town staff? Okay. At this time, I will close public hearing item Z23-08. Heritage North, and we'll look for the commission for discussion. Who'd like to share their thoughts first?
I don't know if I have much to add other than some of the questions that we already had, but I'm in support in supporting them to make it happen, because I do know that financing and development conditions are different right now than they were when we voted on this previously.
I agree. I don't really think they're asking for any big ask or change. They're just kind of pivoting to make a strategy that makes sense for them to even develop and proceed with the project in general. So I'm good with everything.
I would agree. At this time, I'll look for the commissioners to make a motion.
Clarification, are we motioning to amend 2814 or to approve Z23-08?
I think we're amending to approve Z23-08.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct. It's an approval of Z23-08 Heritage North with staff recommendations for the amendment and conditions.
I approve Z23-08 Heritage North with staff's, amendments and recommendations?
Conditions.
Conditions and recommendations.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Perfect. Shall we vote? And item Z23-08 has been approved. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, applicant. I'll now open public hearing for DR 23-01, Clements Garage redevelopment.
Mr. Chairman, apologies that the public hearing number is DR 23-101, if you could.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem.
DR 23-101.
Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, can you confirm that we have one commissioner of the commission that would wish to recuse themselves from this item?
Mr. Chairman, we do have one commissioner. Commissioner Bigelow will be recusing himself for this item, DR 23-101.
Thank you, Amanda. Kristen, if you would please come forward for the Heritage North presentation. Or is the Clements Garage presentation?
Apologies, Clements.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. The case I have before you tonight is for the Clements Garage redevelopment. The site is located southeast of Gilbert Road and Columber Avenue. The applicant is proposing to redevelop the existing Clements Garage building currently located on the site. The site is approximately 0.58 acres and is zoned Heritage Village Center. The proposed development is approximately 10,000 square feet with 5,500 square feet of patio space. There is a 3-foot tall patio wall that buffers the patio from the sidewalk along Gilbert Road. Along this wall will also be 2 cabanas that face inward toward the patio. The restaurant is accessed by entering the patio area off of Gilbert Road. The retail space also has an access off of Gilbert Road. There are additional entrances to the businesses from the rear of the property as well. And on the site, as opposed to using a traditional refuse enclosure, the applicant has proposed to use a compactor internal to the building. On the pickup days, the compactor will be rolled out to the northeasternmost corner of the site for pickup and then be rolled back inside the building afterwards. It is a requirement of our environmental services team that trash trucks not back up over 50 feet. So since the Clements site is over 50 feet from Columber, we'll be establishing a temporary access agreement for them to utilize our parking lot north of Clements as the exit route for the trash trucks. This access is temporary until the development of the Ash Street realignment in the future. Another requirement will be the widening of the alley east of Clements. The developer for the Clements site will be required to provide improvements to the alley and widen it to 21 feet from Columber to the southern property line of the Clements property. And these improvements will also impact a portion of the parking lot north of Clements. Right, and then landscaping for the site is separated into 2 different categories, internal and external to the site. Red push pistache trees are proposed along the street frontage with Murphy agave, Mexican feathergrass, and deer grass within the retail tenant patio space. Internal landscaping for the restaurant tenant is proposed to include date palms, Swan Hill fruitless olive trees, giant bird of paradise, lantana, and brake lights, Hesper aloe. Right, and within the Heritage District Design Guidelines, they include a list of permitted landscaping within the district. During the study session in October, the applicant had proposed several landscape deviations. That list is what I included in your staff report for this evening, but it is not the most updated list. Seen here are the original requests on the left and the updated requests on the right. The applicant has removed the request for coral fountain, foxtail fern, ponytail palm, sago palm, umbrella plant, Casa blue flax lily, creeping fig vine, natal plum, blue hibiscus, and dwarf pittosporum. And in their place, they are requesting to add Spencer's asparagus, cat claw vine, red fountain grass, orange jubilee tacoma, and coppery messem. Right, and then seen here is the landscape palette for the exterior portion of the site along Gilbert Road and within the retail patio space. Outlined in red are 2 of the plants included in the deviation request. Ghost gum tree at the entrance to the restaurant patio, and then Sierra apricot shrubs along the northern side of the retail patio space. Right, and then seen here is the landscape palette for the interior portion of the site. located within the restaurant patio space. You'll see the requested deviations outlined in red, which include Swan Hill fruitless olive and date palm trees, Orange Jubilee, Tacoma, and Arizona rosewood shrubs, giant bird of paradise, Spencer's asparagus, cat's claw vine, and red fountain grass accents, and then the coppery messum ground cover. The applicant is proposing a 26-foot, 8-inch, one-story, mixed-use, two-tenant building. The restaurant tenant will be approximately 5,500 square feet with a 5,000 square foot patio. And the retail tenant will be approximately 3,400 square feet with a 500 square foot patio. Portions of the existing Clemens Garage building will remain and be incorporated into the design of the new building. Seen here are the existing elevations for the front and rear of the property compared to what currently exists on site. You can see portions of the existing building, such as window elements, are still found within the remodeled building. The primary colors and materials being used are masonry, brick, and stucco in various shades of brown and cream. The applicant is also proposing wood shutters and Spanish tiles as accent material to the building, seen here in the rear of the building. The Spanish tiles are used to accent the recessed portions of the east elevation, and then the tiles are also located within the bottom of the cabanas off of Gilbert Road. Right, the south elevation of the project incorporates window cutouts from the existing building into the new project and adds a 6-foot site wall to enclose the patio space at the front of the site. The north elevation is made up primarily of brick, but includes some recessed stucco areas for future mural locations. The applicant has ensured 360-degree architecture and has included a combination of permitted materials, including brick and stucco with tile and wood accents. Right, and then here are some renderings showing the front views of the property. Right, and then here is a close-up of the colors and materials that are being proposed. Right, and then a close-up of the floor plan showing the two tenants and their patio spaces. Right, and then as mentioned earlier in the presentation, the list of landscape deviations you received in the body of your staff report is not correct, but the landscape plan exhibit is. To prevent confusion down the road, staff would like to add an additional condition of approval to the project. The condition being that landscape deviation requests shall conform to the landscape plan exhibit approved by the Redevelopment Commission at the January 17th, 2024 public hearing. This way it's clear that the requested deviations should match the landscape plan exhibit, not my wording in the staff report. And then about an hour before the meeting, there was an additional item that was discovered by our engineering team. There is a water line concern that has not been addressed on the grading and drainage plan as of yet, so we would like to add an additional condition as well, that grading and drainage plan be approved administratively prior to permitting. Right, and then with that, staff recommends approval of DR 23-101 Clemens Garage, subject to conditions found in your staff report, as well as the 2 added conditions proposed this evening. And I am available for your questions.
Thank you, Kristen. Commissioners, are there any questions? Commissioner Baugh?
The sidewalk cabana, would you mind pulling up the site plan of that? Okay. I love how they interact with the street. It's a really good way to create pedestrian activity. Are those cabanas just purely architectural, or are they occupiable?
Chair Kendall, Commissioner Baugh, yes, they are occupiable. There are booths inside.
There are booths inside?
Yes.
For dining?
Yes.
Okay. And the ice plant, the coppery messum, I don't care at all particularly what plants they have in the interior courtyard. My experience is those plants aren't particularly hardy in our summertime, but if they choose that plant and decide to replace it, then I would understand. I have no problem or objection with it. It's more about my own preference of trying to grow that at my property.
Noted.
Commissioner Baugh, any other questions?
No, thank you.
Vice Chair Updike?
Thank you. So your last comment about the grading and drainage plan.
Yep.
Can you walk me through that again?
Sure. All right, so Chair Kendall, Commissioner Updike, we've been working on modifications to their grading and drainage plan and their site plan, and the turnaround was pretty quick on this prior to tonight's public hearing. So about an hour before the hearing, our engineer that was reviewing the project had reached out and said that one of his comments to install an 8-inch water line within the alley had not been addressed yet. As opposed to trying to continue them again and bring them to another month out hearing, we would just like to add it as a condition to have the grading and drainage plan approved administratively so that that water line comment can be addressed.
Okay. Okay, I have other questions, but I don't know if
We can come back.
they apply because it's just my design brain going through how the site is handling water runoff. But the engineers will handle that, right? So I don't need to ask these questions. Okay. So then the landscaping. Can you go back to the list with all the highlights, please?
This one or the lists?
Yeah, no, this is a good one. For the trees that are highlighted, is there a reason why, you know, the date palm, for example, may not be on our list of approved plants? Is there a height concern or what's the why behind messiness, potentially? Yeah, do we understand the driving request for why they're asking for so many non-pre-approved plant species, or?
Sure. So Commissioner Kendall, Chair Kendall, Commissioner Updike, I would assume it's because of the tenant that they have in mind, but is that accurate, Artie? Okay, yes, it's because of the tenant that they have in mind. It fits the atmosphere of the tenant.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna keep thinking on this. Thank you.
Perfect. I'm glad that we got rid of the Seiko palms. Those are like really pokey. And I'm glad that there's been an adjustment to those. The parking lot that's north of the building itself, is that owned by the town?
It is.
Is there any future plans on that or any recommendations that's been made? Is that going to remain for the time being?
It's going to remain for the time being. It is part of the future Ash Street realignment. There's not a design for that yet, but it's anticipated that that parking lot will be cut down as Ash Street realigns down Cullenber, which is why the temporary access agreement for the trash is until that happens, because it will bring the road closer to Clements and closer to that 50-foot requirement.
So if I see this correctly, that lane is the trash?
Yeah, so you can see we had them install to our GIL standards, the pickup pad over in the northeastern corner. Then you can kind of see the turning radius coming off of that.
Sure.
So they'll back up and then exit out of the parking lot, as opposed to backing all the way out down Cullenber. It's a bit shorter distance, and then they'll exit from the parking lot.
In a different rendering, was there parking spots there, including a handicap spot?
So this landscape plan was submitted prior to the final site plan that was submitted. The only modifications being that corner where the refuse enclosure is. The refuse is one of the final comments that we addressed.
Sure. In regards to the billboard, is that going to remain?
No, it is going away.
That is going away, okay.
That never happens.
A billboard going away?
No, that's really unique.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Bob. Would the applicant like to speak at this time?
No, I don't believe so.
Perfect.
They're
Staff-
available for questions if you have them, though.
Are there any additional questions, commissioners? Vice Chair Updike, you're viciously going through your pad.
I am, and I'm getting some of the answers and scrolling, so I think I'm good. Thank you.
Great. Staff, are there any members of the public who would like to speak on item DR 23-101.
Mr. Chairman, I have no requests from the public to speak at this moment.
Perfect. I believe the question was, is there an ETA on the start of that project?
I do not have one. Thank you. So it's estimated possibly summer of this year.
Summer 2024. Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for staff? Perfect. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing on item DR 23-101, Clements Garage, and we'll look for the commissioners for a discussion. Who would like to share their thoughts first? Commissioner Vaughn?
Yeah, no, I've said this before at the study session, and I like the use, I like the design. It's a great way to create activity with this parcel, which I think is a really small parcel to begin with. So trying to create something here, particularly restaurant, which tends to be parking heavy, is a good use. I love also that it's sort of like the, I know the Heritage District doesn't begin at this point. It begins at Elliott Road, but it feels like that's the entrance to the Heritage District, so it's a really good spot for that type of design. Now that I know the billboard's going away, and I know there's an opportunity for murals on this building, I just wonder if we're gonna see the attorney with his sleeves ripped off of his shirt that typically is, I think, Brown law. Hopefully that doesn't become the mural, because it's been so long associated with that property. But all kidding aside, it's a great design. Have no issues with it.
Vice Chair Updike?
So I like seeing adaptive reuse projects, so I'm excited to see this one. I am generally always curious to better understand reasons for wanting to stray from some set guidelines. And I also think, though, that with this use, it's their best interest to keep the landscaping thriving, and so I'm probably more flexible in this example than maybe I sometimes am when we're trying to stray from standards. But yeah, I think it looks like a great, exciting project, and again, I'm in support of adaptive reuse opportunities where we have them.
Thank you very much. Can we go back to the rendering of the front of the building? This, I'm really excited about this project, and a lot of people have sought us out and said, please try to keep it as close to what it is now moving forward. And I think that the applicant has done a really, really good job in doing that, and I'm excited to see what this project comes to look like and who the tenants are, and a lot of great success. If no other commissioners have any comments or questions, I'll look for the commissioners for a motion to approve item DR 23-0101.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if it helps the commission, a recommendation or a motion would look like this. It would be a motion to approve the findings of fact and approve DR 23-101 with conditions 1 through 6 and the added condition of an 8-inch water line and grading and drainage approved administratively.
You guys got that?
Would you entertain a motion?
Yes.
Fantastic. I move to approve, subject to the recommendations and stipulations 1 through 6 in the staff report, and the addition of the extra stipulation regarding the 1-inch water line as described by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Perfect. Let's vote.
All votes have been cast, and item DR 23-101 has passed. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, applicant. We'll now move to communications. I don't have anything to add. Councilman Torgerson, do you have anything to
Thank
add?
you, Chair
Or would you like
Kendall.
to report?
On Tuesday, January 23rd at 5 p.m., a study session will take place here in council chambers for discussion and presentation on the Northwest Gilbert redevelopment and revitalization. As a reminder, Water Tower Plaza, located in the Heritage District, is now closed until the fall for renovations. And finally, don't forget to check out the event calendar on gilbertaz.gov for information about council and commission meetings, events, and more. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any updates? Hearing none. Amanda, do you have a report for us tonight?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I do not have a report tonight. It's just thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. At this time, it is now 6:53, and I will adjourn the Redevelopment Commission meeting. Thank you.